Here we go. Happy Wednesday. Welcome into the show. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now, and we're live right here on Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. No matter where you are or how you're tuned in, we appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, another loaded show here on this edition of Eagles Now Live. I'm going to do my Eagles 53-man roster projection after minicamp, a couple of changes to who could make the team, who could get cut, who's on that roster bubble, and an overall look at this Eagles team in its entirety. Also going to take a look at some holdout players across the NFL who the Philadelphia Eagles could trade for, since they are well equipped with a lot of cap space to maybe make a move if they need to. And surprising lineup changes. Could they be coming for the Eagles following mandatory minicamp as we look ahead toward training camp? We will also wrap things up with a Q&A. Always love doing our mailbags. Therefore, you can join the show. You can ask me a question. You can share a hot take to be featured right here on Eagles Now. Since we're going to be talking about this Eagles roster during the roster projection, roster prediction, I want to hear from everybody right now as far as where you think this Eagles team ranks with its ranking. And I want you to do it in Madden style, right? How would you grade the Eagles roster on a scale of 1 to 100? 1, awful. 100, the best team in the NFL. Let me know down in the comment section right now. We'll start to give you some shout-outs. I see Team Birds is here. Carol Hosey. Go Birds 21. Chase, wish me luck. I have a final exam tomorrow. Good luck to you. I'm so happy I'm not in school any longer. Millie315 saying Bird Gang. Eric Harris, Bird Gang for life. And now the roster answers are starting to come in. Go Birds 92. Philly Scales 92. Aaron Leby 100. Ernesto 97. Team Birds 100. Eric Harris 96. Bob 98, Dragon 100, Jason Covington 101, Bob Schwartz 50, Millie315 saying 85 with the potential of 95. I like how you said that right there. And as I put together this roster projection a little bit earlier today and getting ready for the show, one thing I can tell you, Howie Roseman has done a really good job, I think, of building depth, acquiring star talent, and trying to address the roster needs and question marks that this team had following the skid to end the year last year. And then looking ahead to 2024, Howie Roseman posed the question, how can we get better? And I do believe that this man here to my right, thanks to Jeffrey Lurie, allowing him to spend money and be aggressive, has improved this football team. So first I asked you about the Eagles roster. Now I'm going to ask you about the Eagles as a team and where they rank among all 32 teams in the National Football League. So fill in the blank here. The Eagles are the blank best team in the NFL. Where do you think that Philadelphia is? 5th, 1st, 10th, 15th? It's up for you to let your voices be heard. Dragon said, number 1, the Chiefs suck. See, for me, the Chiefs are the number 1 team. They won the Super Bowl, and this year, during the offseason, I think they may have gotten better. So Philadelphia, I think, is a top 5 team for sure. Philly Scales tied for 3rd. I could certainly see Philadelphia being in that range. Armando Torres saying they're the best team in the NFL. So according to Armando, you take out the blank, the Eagles are the best team in the National Football League. Team Birds, Eagles are the second best team in the NFL. I like it. Here's our Super Chat menu for today if you want to so kindly donate to the show. And when you do that, we have a lot of fun. You'll also be a part of our mailbag. So that's a couple of victories right there for you if you send in a tip, a Super Chat donation. All Super Chats today get a shout out. $10, we're giving you a beer cheers. $20, I woke up at 6 a.m. today to do a morning workout, went to a class. Let's continue to get swole. 20 push-ups for $20, 50 for a beer bong. If anybody sends in a $100 super chat, I'll do a beer boot. It's mailbag time here as well for segment number 4. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat to be a part of the show. That's hashtag Eagles, or send in a super chat to be a part of the show. Recent commenter club, Spilled Milk, Jordan, Todd, Eric, Little G Griffith, Team Birds, Armando, Philly Scales, Dragon, Jason Covington. It's good to see all of the real ones in here. And with 80 people watching live, you know what we have to do next before we start the show? We got to get the likes up. 80 people watching live, only 12 likes right now. I need everybody rocking with us, everybody hanging out to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. With that, I'll throw it over to my guy, producer Chip, on the ones and twos, making today's show possible. What up, Chip?
Yo, Chase. Let me get something real quick to start off this show.
E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go! Baby! Hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, baby. We're about to get the show underway. Can we get the 50 likes? 50 likes is what we're shooting for here. Todd Johnson liked the video. If you did hit that thumbs up icon, I want you to type me down in the comments section. Armando, Carol Hosey, Spilled Milk again, Millie315. Millie315 saying top 5, KC, Philly, San Francisco, Baltimore, Cincinnati. I like all those teams, Millie315. That is for sure. Dre, where the hell is Trace? The Chase and Trace show was supposed to be legendary. You know what? Credit to Trace. Trace has always wanted to be on air. He worked his way up from backup producer to better producer to elite producer. Now he's still producing, but he's doing more on-air responsibilities as the host of Saints Now. So that's why he's not the producer of this show, but it works out because producer Chip is a legend. He's from just outside of Philadelphia, lifelong Philadelphia fan like myself. So you get 2 Eagles fans running this channel here. Doomsday Corner Sports typing me, Philly Scales, Carol Hosey, Todd Johnson, the Don76, all hitting that thumbs up icon and liking the video. We have a stacked show on the horizon for everybody. And we are about to get the show underway.
Let's do it, baby.
Gonna start off with our Eagles 53-man roster projection after minicamp. That is segment number 1. We have 4 segments in store for everybody. So let's get the show underway. Go Birds! And let's talk some Eagles right now. All right, welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, as always, we appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, Eagles 53-man roster projection following minicamp. An updated look at this team and who, in my eyes, makes the 53-man roster. A great roster breakdown to see who's in line and on the roster bubble. Potential cuts. Obviously, some of the shoe-ins as well. Before we get started, help me out. Support me on social media. I'm on X at Chase_Senior, approaching 13,000 followers. And I'm on Instagram at Chase_Senior, approaching 30,000 followers. I put out a bunch of short-form content talking Eagles, NFL, NBA, all sports, lifestyle on my social media pages. So in addition to the long-form content you see here on YouTube, I also talk a lot of sports on the social media front as well, with a plenty of Eagles content at Chase_Senior on both platforms. All right, let's get the show underway. Eagles updated roster projection, and we begin with the quarterback spot. We're going to continue to go chalk here, obviously, and I think Philadelphia's in a good spot at the QB position. I think Jalen Hurts has the possibility of returning back to that 2022 form. I think that Kellen Moore is really going to bring the best out of him as a player. Brian Johnson last year was in over his skis as a play caller who had never called plays at the NFL level with the team that was coming off a Super Bowl. His situational awareness was not good. And in the process, Hurts really struggled at the end of the year. But remember, as early as November or as late as November, he was the odds-on favorite to win NFL MVP. So it wasn't as bad as what some people were saying. 2 years ago, he accounted for 4 touchdowns and almost 400 yards in the Super Bowl. So I think that Jalen Hurts rebounds, and I like where the backups are at. Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee. In the spring, Pickett, McKee, they performed very well. They were very impressive. Kenny Pickett throwing balls down the seam, down the numbers. He really likes throwing that back shoulder ball. And then Tanner McKee has a lot of touch, accuracy, timing, and anticipation toward the sideline. Hurts did struggle with interceptions during OTAs and minicamp, but keep in mind, Eagles are trying to master a new offense. Let's flip the page to the running back position. I think Philadelphia only goes with 3, at least as of right now, on the opening 53. Saquon Barkley, your starter, Kenneth Gainwell, the backup, and then the rookie Will Shipley out of Clemson, kind of a poor man's Christian McCaffrey with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think the Eagles carry 3 running backs because they are really deep elsewhere. And you can afford to go with 3 running backs so that you can stack up at other positions elsewhere on your roster. And Kendall Milton, the UDFA out of Georgia, an intriguing practice squad running back because anytime you get inside the 5, he's physical. He can lower the shoulder. He can break tackles. I think that he can be a quality short yardage back at the NFL level. If an injury happens, you can elevate him to the active roster. If you want to hold on to 4 running backs, I think he could make it ahead of Ty Davis Price and Lou Nichols. Next up, wide receivers. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, one of the best wide receiver duos in the National Football League. After that, Paris Campbell pretty much got all of the wide receiver 3 snaps during mandatory minicamp. But with Campbell, Britton Covey, Aniyah Smith, and Johnny Wilson, there are major question marks there beyond A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith because you think of those players. Paris Campbell's always hurt. Britton Covey has primarily been a punt returner. Then you have Aniyah Smith and Johnny Wilson, who are both rookies, and they're late-round rookies too. And then you have a player like John Ross, who, like Paris Campbell, is fast, but always hurt. And right now, John Ross on the outside looking in to make this Eagles 53-man roster. He's going to have to stay healthy during training camp and in the preseason, and of course, produce as well. Tight ends. I think Philadelphia only goes with 3. Because there are 3 worthy of making this roster. And again, because Howie Roseman has built up this football team so that there are a couple of players deep at a couple of different position groups, you got to trim away from one position to stack up at another one, kind of like the cornerback spot, right? So Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, and CJ Uzomah are my 3 tight ends. Goddard a shoo-in. Grant Calcaterra really good in the spring. And then CJ Uzomah is that veteran who's been in the league for a little while, a good blocker, and you can just count on him. Albert Okwuegbunam has to have a good training camp. He's a super gifted athlete and pass catcher who at Mizzou put up great production with Drew Lock slinging him the rock. But at the NFL level, he struggled to stay healthy. He struggled to produce consistently. He's even struggled to just string together quality practices. He's not a good blocker. The athlete is there, and he's an intriguing athlete at that in catching the football, but he might have to do a little bit more during training camp to make this team. And then you go to the offensive line. Going into the offseason, I thought Philadelphia was a little bit light as far as depth, but I think that Howie Roseman has addressed some of the depth issues in the trenches on the offensive side of the rock here. Your starters, left to right, Jordan Mailata at left tackle, Landon Dickerson left guard, Cam Jurgens at center, Tyler Steen at right guard, and Lane Johnson at right tackle. And then your backups. Mekhi Becton is going to be your swing tackle. He can also play both guard spots, as the Eagles have tried him out there in the spring. Trevor Keegan, you drafted him out of Michigan this past year, a big part of that offensive line that won the national championship and bulldozed opponents and was very physical. Matt Hennessy can play center and guard, so I like the positional versatility. Max Sharping is a player who the Eagles picked up a couple of weeks ago who has draft pedigree but hasn't necessarily put it all together, but he's played a lot in the playoffs as well. And then Fred Johnson is your backup left tackle. The interesting thing here as far as roster battles go, I am not ruling out Mekhi Becton starting at right guard over Tyler Steen. Does Mekhi Becton simply have too much potential to pass up on? And as he continues to get more familiar with that guard spot and playing it, because traditionally he's been a left tackle at the NFL level, does he make strides? Does he make progress so that he can actually start for this football team? Keep an eye on that as you look ahead to training camp as well. How would you grade this Eagles roster? Madden style. This week, EA Sports announcing that Christian McCaffrey is going to be on the cover. Well, the Eagles are going to have a loaded team in Madden 25. So how would you grade their roster 1 to 100? Let me know down in the comment section right now. We're going to go to the defensive side of the ball here in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about this deal thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Such a great deal. I had to buy this shirt. Brotherly Shove, the most underrated, most dominant, most efficient play in football, and it's peak Philadelphia. You have the X's and O's with Jalen Hurts going in for the touchdown or moving the chains on sale. Limited time only, just $22. Head to chatsports.com/brotherly shove. We'll put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's video. Let's talk some defense here. Defensive tackles, as it looks as though Vic Fangio going to roll with the 3-4 scheme. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, all safe bets to make the roster. Marlon Tuipulotu, I think he has the inside track at being one of those backup defensive tackles. And if Vic Fangio likes to implement that 3-4, and he does it often, you're going to kind of need that wide body nose tackle, an old school 3-4 nose to be on this team. It could be Marlon. All four of these players have a great opportunity. Jalen Carter showed flashes last year of dominance. He admitted at the end of the year he wore down. Jordan Davis has shown that he can play at the NFL level and be an impactful player at 6'6", 350 pounds. He admitted he wore down. Milton Williams, a great breakout candidate. And then Marlon is a player who the Eagles drafted. He struggled to stay healthy, but he's had some snaps where you're like, man, he can move some bodies in the trenches. Now to edge. Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, and Jalix Hunt making the team here. 5 edge rushers for Philadelphia, and there is some pressure on this position group. And you think about all those players, right? It's a combination of players having to make leaps, but also some players like Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham having to adapt to a new scheme. Bryce Huff, let's see you put together back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. Nolan Smith, sophomore campaign, it's time to break out. Jalix Hunt, freaky athlete, former safety at Cornell, goes to Houston Christian, turns into a good edge rusher. Vic Fangio really liked him. Does that translate to the NFL level? And like I said, BG Josh Sweat, kind of a prototypical 4-3 end. Can you play in this defense, and can all those players get after the quarterback? Because if you can't, Sundays are going to be long if opposing quarterbacks have all day to throw. Inside linebacker. I had some trouble here, not going to lie. Devin White, best linebacker on this team, the most physically gifted linebacker the Eagles have had since Jeremiah Trotter. Nakobe Dean not getting reps with the ones as of right now. Instead, that's Zach Bond, but both are going to make this team. The Eagles traded up for Axeman Jr., Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and then that 5th linebacker spot came down to either Oren Burks or Ben Van Sumeren. And that battle for the last linebacker spot is going to be a good one in training camp because both Van Sumeren and Oren Burks might be liabilities as off-ball coverage linebackers. Both are good special teams players. So do the Eagles want to go with the player in Van Sumeren who made the team last year as a UDFA and was active on some game days, or Oren Burks, who's more of the veteran, who's been one of the better special teams linebackers in the NFL over the last couple of years with Green Bay and San Francisco? Cornerback, maybe the deepest position group on this team, and it's a really difficult one to really decipher. I have 7 cornerbacks making the 53-man roster. That is extremely rare because oftentimes you don't have 7 DBs who can make the team. But this year, Philadelphia has a lot of talent at that position. And that's great news for a defense that last year had one of the worst passing defenses in the secondary that we've ever seen. So Darius Slay, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Isaiah Rodgers, Keely Ringo, Avonte Maddox, and Eli Ricks. Those are the 7 corners who I have making this club. Which brings me to this point. There is no spot for James Bradberry on this team. He was washed overnight last year, didn't show up to OTAs, came to mandatory minicamp, got hurt, but working off the heels of last year's disastrous campaign in which he was awful, I'm not keeping Bradberry over a younger player with potential that I can groom and develop. That's just how I operate as a football mind. I'm going to try to find a trade partner for James Bradberry. If I can't, I'll eat the money, I'll spread it out, and I'll just outright cut him. Safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, McKee Garner. The safety depth here is not great. That's why I've been pounding the table for Justin Simmons, because if you bring in Justin Simmons, you have him and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, and Sidney Brown as your backups. That's a deep and very talented and versatile safety room. Right now, the Eagles have been having C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship as the starting safety. Sidney Brown still recovering from that torn ACL that he suffered late in the year last year. We'll see if he's a PUP candidate to start the year. Then he doesn't account toward making the 53-man roster. That opens up a roster spot elsewhere, maybe for a James Bradberry, and McKee Garner, a backup and a special teams player. Love the addition of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think Reed Blankenship is a quality player. Both of them very versatile. Sidney Brown very physical. But again, Justin Simmons is the apple of my eye. And then, of course, specialists are people too. Jake Elliott, I think, is unseated Justin Tucker as the best kicker in the NFL. He's being paid like it too. Rick Lovato, a very good long snapper, and then Braden Mann stepping in for Aaron Sipos. That ended up being a good move for Philadelphia at the punter spot. We round out the show with this. As far as this segment goes, the Eagles are the blank best team in the NFL. Fill in the blank for me down in the comment section. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. Segment number 1 is down. We're going to continue to keep it moving here on the show. 3 more segments left. Don't you dare go anywhere. Here's our Super Chat menu. All Super Chats get a shout out. $10, get you a beer cheers. $20, I'll do 20 push-ups. $50 for a beer bong. $100, and I'm doing a beer boot. We will be doing a mailbag, segment number 4. Get involved. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a Super Chat. Therefore, producer Chip can pop up your questions and get them on the show. We have 150 people watching live. We have 46 likes. How quickly can we get to 100 likes? Be sure to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and if you're enjoying the show, that really helps us out, helps other people find the stream. They come and kick it with us. More people that we have, the better the show gets. All right, let's move forward to segment number 2 here. And we're going to look at trade targets for Philadelphia who are players that are holding out for a couple of teams across the NFL. So a trade target segment is coming up. Tanner Plummer, hey Chase, did you see my mean tweet? I did not. I'll have to check that though. Did you send it to me on X or did you send it to me on Instagram? Millie315 saying Jake the Make. Jake Elliott, he a dog. All right, segment number 2. Let's get it. On the rundown for today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, we're going to take a look at some Eagles trade targets, specifically players who are currently holding out, who the Philadelphia Eagles could trade for. And this is a list that's obviously very interesting with a couple of players who are seeking new deals, and if they can't come to an agreement on a new deal, could they get dealt? We'll get to that list coming up here in just a moment, but first, let me tell you about this June sub-battle between Eagles Now and the Cowboys Report. 2 powerhouse channels under the Chat Sports umbrella. Competition breeds excellence. Competition brings the best out of everybody. And right now, we are 35 subs behind the Cowboys Report for new subscribers picked up this month. So here's my sales pitch. If you haven't hit that sub button, do so right now for daily and year-round coverage of the Eagles. All of our content, I aim for it to be informative, entertaining, insightful, thought-provoking. I want you to learn more about the game of football and the Eagles, and we involve you, the viewer, you, the subscriber. Let's take down those Damn Dallas Cowboys, because as we know, they're always fraudulent. Trade target number 1 for players who are holding out for other teams across the NFL. Yes, we're going to have some fun here to start the show and revisit reacquiring Hassan Reddick. Look, I know it's unlikely to happen, but Eagles general manager Howie Roseman has the chance to do the funniest thing ever. And look, couples who break up or divorce, sometimes they're able to reconcile. They're able to get on the right page, and sometimes they get back together. It just happened this week with Rory McIlroy and his wife. They filed for divorce. They reconciled. Now they're back together. Could the Philadelphia Eagles do that with Hassan Reddick? Now, as we know, the Birds did trade him away after 2 very productive seasons with the Eagles. Traded him to Joe Douglas, who used to be Howie Roseman's running mate in the front office in the New York Jets. So the Jets received Reddick, who had 16 sacks in 2022, 11 last year, and then the Eagles received a 2026 third-round pick. Reddick has not showed up to Jets OTAs. He has had 0 communication with head coach Robert Saleh since the trade. And Reddick, understandably so, given the production and what he's done over the last couple of years, is seeking a contract extension with 1 year left on his 3-year, $45 million contract. Now, Hassan Reddick did break his silence on Wednesday, June 12th, as we're recording this, and said, stop believing the foolery y'all see on these social media apps and news outlets running crazy narratives and y'all eating it up. Well, my response to Hassan Reddick is this. You did not show up to mandatory minicamp. You clearly want a new contract. So when you don't show up to mandatory minicamp, people are going to talk about it, just like we're talking about the fact that Aaron Rodgers is overseas on vacation and not at mandatory minicamp. And crazier things have happened in which a player has traded a couple of times during the same offseason. Let's go back to Antonio Brown and that wild 2019 timeline. Shout out to CTESPN. In February, that signaled the end in Pittsburgh. In March, the Bills trade fell through. It looked as though AB was going to go to Buffalo. On March 13th, he's traded to the Raiders. In July, he gets frostbite on his feet. On August 9th, he had the helmet holdout because he wanted to wear a helmet that the NFL wasn't allowing players to wear anymore. And then on September 7th, he was released by the Las Vegas Raiders. You could have never have said that would have happened before that actually happened. It was nuts. And my point here is crazier things have happened. Last 4 years for Hassan Reddick, he's been a very productive player. Double-digit sacks in each of them. In 2020, 12.5 sacks. 2021, 11. He parlayed that into a 3-year deal with Philadelphia in which he was making about $15 million per season. In 2022, he finishes 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting after notching 16 sacks in last year. Not the same production, but the defensive scheme for the Eagles was atrocious. He still notched double-digit sacks. And look at this list. This is elite territory. And Hassan Reddick in an elite category here. Most sacks since 2020. He ranks 4th. That's more than Nick Bosa. And right behind Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, and TJ Watt. Obviously here, the likelihood is low of reacquiring Hassan Reddick. The Eagles should have never traded him in the first place. They'd be much better off as far as at the edge rusher position, because right now you're relying on young players, players who are older like Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham. You're not sure they fit the scheme, or a Bryce Huff who has 1 year of production, or a Nolan Smith who has to take a big leap going into year 2. It'd be great to have a known commodity and Hassan Reddick on this team, but look, Reddick said he wanted to remain with the Eagles. Could you bring him back? 3 more trade targets we're going to go through rapid fire here because they all play the same position, and then we'll break down trade target number 5 for players who are holding out, and I think that 5th player going to be intriguing to a lot of people. T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Cortland Sutton. 3 wide receivers here who have held out or are holding out depending on when mandatory minicamp has taken place for their respective teams. And these are 3 really good players here. I'd rank them Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, very close together, and then Cortland Sutton, a distant third. T. Higgins, 42 catches last year in an injury-shortened season for 656 yards, average yards per catch of 15.5. Brandon Ayuk, second-team All-Pro last year. Great route runner, great footwork, deep threat, everything to his route tree, a really good blocker, 75 catches, more than 1,300 yards, number 2 in the NFL in yards per catch behind Tyreek Hill. And Cortland Sutton, I think, is a little bit overrated. He is not a number 1. The production certainly points to that. And I think he's more so a number 2. He'd be a perfect number 3 for Philadelphia, and obviously a lot more affordable as compared to Higgins and Ayuk, who could get wide receiver 1 money. Cortland Sutton, 59 catches last year, and the production, it's been somewhat lackluster. As for the projected extensions here, Ayuk projected to get a 4-year, $124 million contract, which averages about $31 million per year. We'll see if San Francisco is willing to pony up that cash. I don't think they do. Their latest offer, according to reports, is $26 million. The guaranteed money, though, could be the difference. $90 million in guaranteed money, that's a lot of guaranteed cash. And then for T. Higgins, 4 years, $114 million, average annual value of $28.5 million, and the guaranteed money at $75. So I said that Ayuk is a little bit better than T. Higgins. The contract projected extensions, that points to that as well, as far as the value for both of those players. Cortland Sutton, not going to get the money that Ayuk and Higgins gets, right? But he's seeking a bump from his current $13.5 million cash total and 2 years left on his deal. If I'm the Denver Broncos, I'm telling him to play the remainder of that deal or don't show up and we're going to fine you. Now, we're talking about these players as well because we know that Howie Roseman is aggressive. We know that Howie Roseman is a mover and a shaker. Keep in mind, Philadelphia has nearly $26 million in cap space, $25.7 million that they can use on the roster. Pick a trade for those wide receivers, by the way. T. Higgins, he wears the number 5. Brandon Ayuk, he wears the number 11. And Cortland Sutton, number 14. Which one would you rather the Eagles acquire? And then trade target number 5 would come to Philadelphia from the western part of the state. Pittsburgh Steelers, Cam Hayward, really good defensive tackle who's a little bit older, but that has not kept him from being a very productive player in this league. Sat out the first 2 weeks of Steelers OTAs. He is 35, looking to play 3 more years, which takes him to 38. 1 year left on his current contract. I saw him at the Super Bowl each of the last 2 years. This is a mountain of a man. This one a little bit risky because if you acquire him, he is older, and you're not sure if you do pay him how much gas he does have left in the tank. But you look at the numbers and the production over the last 4 years, what I get concerned about, he's coming off a 2023 campaign in which he only played 11 games with 2 sacks. The 2 years before that, though, he was awesome. 10.5 sacks and then 10 sacks. He does a really good job of breaking up passes at the line of scrimmage. He's just a huge player who could dominate the interior of the defensive line. And the Eagles could use some juice at defensive tackle. Vic Fangio going to be running a 3-4 scheme. I think Cam Hayward could be a good fit in that 3-4 scheme. And most pressures since 2019 at defensive tackle. Cam Hayward, 131, Grady Jarrett, 78th, and David Onyemata was 68. It's a lot of pressures. And where that ranks Hayward among all players in the NFL, 4th. It's pretty damn good. So which player would you trade for? We just talked about 5 right here on this show. Drop me a name or names down below. It can also be a player who we did not talk about here on the show, but that player has to be a holdout. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily and year-round coverage of the E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles. And as always, thank you so much for your support. Oh! Our guy Paul C. with the $50 super chat. He says 50 for a drink because I'm getting married on Saturday. Go Eagles. Wow, Paul, congratulations to you. Hope the day goes in a fantastic way. Thank you so much for all of your support here. You've been one of our Super Chat MVPs. And I'm going to do a beer bong for Paul's wedding coming up after our mailbag, which is segment number 4. We're going to segment number 3 coming up next here. Speaking of Super Chats, here's our Super Chat menu. Thanks to Paul, doing a beer bong. All Super Chats get a shout out. $10 a beer cheers. 20, I'll do 20 push-ups. 100 for a beer boot. If Paul sends in another 50, I'll make a deal. I'll do a beer boot.
Congratulations, Paul. That's awesome stuff.
Everybody type congrats in the chat for Paul, longtime supporter of Eagles Now. Getting married on Saturday. Awesome stuff. Didn't want to obviously react to that big super chat during that segment because we put that up on the channel a little bit later, but we will react to that during our mailbag. Speaking of the mailbag, be a part of it. Get on the show. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. We had an audience spike during that last segment, so we have some new people here. Thanks for hanging out here with us. If you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Tanner saying congrats. Ernesto saying congrats. Nate, congrats with the little beer cheers. That's what you love to see. Jason Russell said, I liked the super chat as soon as I read it. Show the man some love. Coming up next, some spicy Eagles rumors and some potential surprising changes being made to the Eagles starting lineup. Segment number 3 about to get underway. Let me just get a sip of water here real quick. Elijah Stovall, another one of our Super Chat OGs. He messaged me on Instagram a little bit earlier today. I did message you back, Elijah, about that Eagles-Jags ticket. Good to see you here on YouTube as well. All right, segment number 3. Let's fly. Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles, now some spicy Eagles rumors. Could the Birds be making some surprising changes to their starting lineup? And we're going to talk about 2 changes to the starting lineup. Specifically, could McKee Becton start at right guard over Tyler Steen? There's some buzz there. And could Keely Ringo unseat Darius Slay as the team's starting cornerback? Stay tuned for all of that. First, if you love the Philadelphia Eagles, go Birds. If you're about that life, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video right now. If you don't support the Eagles, what are you doing here? Either way, thank you so much for watching the show. So there's some buzz going into Eagles training camp at the end of July that McKee Becton, former first-round pick for the New York Jets back in 2020, could start at right guard alongside Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson. Really, Chase? Yes, really. He has never played guard at the NFL level before, but Jeff Stoutland, this Eagles coaching staff, they're trying to develop him as a guard, which adds to his positional versatility and value to this team because he's already the top backup swing tackle who could play right tackle and left tackle, and he could play both guard spots. So the arrow is pointing up for McKee Becton as he's looking to resurrect his career after a couple of sour years to end his Jets tenure. Now, Tyler Steen got the first team snaps at right guard during OTAs as well as mandatory minicamp. McKee Becton, though, did get the starting left guard snaps with Landon Dickerson away from the team and excused absence during mandatory camp. And at 6'7", 365 pounds, McKee Becton's potential is enormous. Him as a player, also enormous. And while I think he's a really intriguing player, he's only 25 years old. He was the 11th overall pick back in 2020. He had a very impressive rookie year. It looked as though he was going to be the left tackle of the future for the New York Jets. He moves extremely well for his size with light feet and a powerful punch. And McKee Becton is a player who could be the byproduct of the Eagles player development program and a Jeff Stoutland University masterpiece. Becton even said last week from mandatory minicamp, he's enjoying his time in Philadelphia so much, where he could see himself spending the rest of his career with the Philadelphia Eagles after just signing with this team not long ago. He said he loves the city, loves the organization, loves the fan base, and he came here because of the offensive line talent, Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, he mentioned them specifically, but Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach in the NFL, who does a great job of grooming, developing, maximizing offensive linemen. Becton will have value on this team regardless of whether or not he starts, because he can play swing tackle, very valuable if a player were to go down. He could play backup guard, and I'm not ruling out the possibility of Becton starting at guard. Now in 2023, not good. That's why the Jets did not retain him. And then in the draft, they drafted Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. The number's not pretty. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 53.2, pass blocking grade of 60.7, run blocking grade of 56.3, 985 snaps, 644 of those by way of pass blocking snaps. He committed 18 penalties, gave up 12 sacks, 8 hits on the quarterback, and an astounding 50 pressures. He did play left tackle, and he also played right tackle. But there's a better player in there. And I think this is why Philadelphia took a chance on Becton, because as a rookie, this is what he did as a plug-and-play starter. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 74.4, well over league average. Pass blocking grade of 76. Run blocking grade of nearly 74. He did give up 23 pressures. That's not ideal. 7 sacks allowed. Not great either for a quarterback's blind side. 1 hit, though. 7 penalties. And he played all of his snaps that year as the 11th overall pick at left tackle. This will be a good camp battle. I don't think that Tyler Steen, just because he's getting first-team right guard snaps, is definitely going to start at right guard. If Mekhi Becton, at that size, with that ability, with that potential, just starts pancaking cats and moving dudes and open up gaping holes for Saquon Barkley in the running game, protecting Jalen Hurts, Tanner McKee, Kenny Pickett, Eagles coaching staff could look at him and say, we can't afford to have this man on the bench. Pick a starter at right guard. Who would you go with as of right now? Tyler Steen, who Jeff Stoutland said has a little bit of Brandon Brooks to his game, or Mekhi Becton type NB down in the comment section right now. We're going to talk Kelee Ringo coming up here in just a moment. First, want to tell you once again about this deal. Thanks to our friends at Fanatics, the Brotherly Shove shirt on sale for just $22. Limited time only. Chatsports.com/brotherly shove. Put that link down below in the comment section and in the description of this video so that you can look good, support the birds with a very creative shirt that's guaranteed to be a conversation starter, turn some heads because I already bought it, and the same thing has happened to me. Will Kelee Ringo start? Kelee Ringo, 4th-round pick from the 2023 draft, coming off a great spring. And there's some chatter that maybe he could unseat Darius Slay as cornerback 1 because of how deep the Eagles are at the cornerback spot. And, of course, Darius Slay, as we know, getting a little bit older. This is what we do know. The Eagles have an embarrassment of riches at the cornerback spot. And having this many options and depth, and I'm talking quality options and quality depth, in a pass-happy league and era, when you're going up against some really talented premier quarterbacks, it's a great thing, especially because Philadelphia was so terrible last year with their pass defense. In my roster projection for who makes the 53-man following mandatory minicamp, these are the corners I have making the team. Darius Slay, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Isaiah Rodgers, Kelee Ringo, Avonte Maddox, and Eli Ricks. I went with 7 total players. Who's going to start? That's a huge mystery going into the end of the summer. Why I think Ringo is so intriguing, the speed. 4.3 40-yard dash. And that long speed was on display during OTAs and minicamp, where he's running with Paris Campbell and John Ross, who are 4.2, 4.3 guys. I know that it's Paris Campbell and John Ross, right? But 4.3 speed is 4.3 speed. Kelee Ringo also has some decent length and good height. He's also a really young player who I think is molding into his fullest potential. He turns 22 on June 27th. So when he was drafted by Philadelphia, he was 20 years old. Last year when he was inserted into the lineup, I thought he performed well in limited time. The confidence is now up at a position which you need confidence at. Had a tremendous spring. And going into the draft in 2023, his stock kind of fell. But going into the previous season at Georgia, some people were looking at Kelee Ringo as a first or second round pick because of the ability and the potential that he does have. And you look at his Pro Football Focus grades from his rookie campaign. He did only log 116 coverage snaps. So the sample size small. But for a rookie on a poorly coached defense with a bad scheme, overall grade of 64.5, not bad. Run defense grade of 73.5. I want to point that out because I thought Ringo against the run made a couple of good plays with some TFLs and showed off some physicality in taking down some ball carriers against the run. A coverage grade of 63.8 in the yellow, not in the red. Allowed a passer rating of 74.1 and did have one interception. The question becomes, who would Kelee Ringo start over? And what would the Eagles do with their starting outside corners? I still think Darius Slay has the inside track of being cornerback 1. But who starts on the other side? Is it Kelee Ringo? Is it Quinion Mitchell? Is it Isaiah Rodgers? Pretty sure the Eagles are going to continue to have Cooper DeJean out of the slot. I think that's smart. And Slay in 2023, some people think that he was on a James Bradbury level of being so bad. Look, he wasn't that bad, and it's hard to gauge which players were good, which players were bad, because the defense was historically putrid. He had an overall PFF grade of 68.4. It's right around league average, right? Coverage grade of 68.5. Passer rating allowed of 82.3. 2 interceptions. He still had 14 pass breakups, and he missed some time, and he admitted that knee injury that he had to get surgery on, it's been hurting him for the last couple of years, and now coming off of that, feels as though he's regained some speed. He's back to being 100%. Darius Slay, ladies and gentlemen, he can still play in this league. I still think he's cornerback 1 on this team. Who should the 2 starting outside corners be? You can hop inside the coaching room with Nick Serianni and make that decision for yourself right now here on Eagles Now. Curious to see what you come up with. Oh, Big Paul, another $50 super chat. EAGLES, Eagles. I did say, Paul, you send in another $50 super chat. I'm doing a beer boot at the end of the show. 3 beers, 1 boot. Paul said, I'm getting married this weekend. Screw it. LOL. Paul. Woo! Everybody type PC in the chat.
Let's go, Paul.
PC in the chat.
Show some love.
And here's our super chat menu. All super chats get a shout out. $10 for a beer. Cheers. $20 doing 20 push-ups. Paul sent in 250s. That equals 100. So, beer boot coming up for the legend, Paul. Anybody else going to join the party here? If you want to join the party and be a part of our mailbag, that's coming up.
Use that hashtag Eagles. We've got a few questions so far, but we could use a couple more.
Hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat.
Get on the show.
Been live for 50 minutes now. We're going to round out with the mailbag. Last call to get those questions in. You send in a super chat, guaranteed to be on the show. E-Money Bentley saying, go Birds. Tanner Plummer said he sent me a mean tweet on Instagram. Let's see what we got here. What do we got? Where's Tanner? All right, Tanner. He kind of bodied me a little bit. That's what mean tweets are all about. You want a mean tweet? Here's one. Chase looks like Reed Blankenship if Reed had huge bags under his eyes from getting only 2 hours of sleep from drinking 50 Red Bulls. Hey, we work hard here at Chat Sports, that is for sure. Tanner, were you up at 6 a.m. getting in an hour workout, cold plunge sauna, and then going to work? I appreciate it, brother. You're a good sport. Lion Fighter, he's back using the hashtag Eagles. And then John Horan, I like this. Once Slay retires, I love the idea of Mitchell, DeJean, and Ringo being our top 3 corners. 3 young studs. It'll be a nice change of pace from having a less than average corner core for a while now. Yeah, even when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they still had a pretty mediocre cornerback room. Now, Malcolm Jenkins and Jalen Mills, I thought, were a really good safety tandem. But the cornerbacks, Ronald Darby was their number 1 corner. Not elite by any means. Carol Hosey, love you too. Appreciate that. Hardest working man in football. I don't know if I'm the hardest working man, but we do grind and I like to grind. Alex Irvine, $10 super chat. Over under CJ Gardner-Johnson interceptions this year. That's a good question. Because when he's been on the field the last 2 years, and last year, his season was cut short because of that biceps injury. But 2 years ago with the Eagles, he still only played 12 games. He had 6 picks, tied with Justin Simmons for the NFL League lead. So in CJ Gardner-Johnson's last 15 games, over the last 2 years, he has 7 picks. So let's go 5.5 this year. 5.5 this year is the over-under. Alex Irvine, I like that. And let me reach down, give you a little beer cheers, my man. Appreciate you. Thank you for that. Tanner, Darby was elite in 2017. I don't know about elite. Let's see if the PFF numbers go back to 2017.
Yeah, elite's probably a bit of a stretch. He was solid, though.
You know, he did have a coverage grade of 79, overall grade of 79.9, run defense grade of 75, passer rating allowed of 57.2. So he was good that year. Tanner knows ball. But I think there's a reason why he's kind of hopped around a couple of different teams. Good speed. Sometimes the instincts are a little bit iffy. I wouldn't say that he has like the loosest hips. I think he's a little bit tight there sometimes. But good stuff, Tanner. All right, let's round out with the mailbag here. We'll take your questions here on the show. Excited to see what everybody has to offer.
Last chance to get those questions in. You want to get on the show? Last chance, baby.
Get on the show. Get on the show. Never any doubt, Tanner, that you knew ball. All right, mailbag segment. Then we're doing the beer boot for Paul C., who sent in two $50 super chats. Let's get it. Yeah, you can put all the supers there, even if they're at the end. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, throw them in at the end. Antonio, Mitchell, Rogers, Ringo, DeJean, the future. Mailbag to round things out, segment number 4. And let's get it underway right now. Yo, what's good? What's up? Welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. I'm Chase Sr. As always, thank you so much for watching today's show and supporting us here on the channel. Coming up, going to open up the floor, answer your questions, and feature your hot takes right here on the program. First, make sure you hit that sub button so that you can be a part of our shows, because we love to involve all of you as a listener, viewer, and subscriber, but also you become a more informed Eagles fan because we give you entertaining, insightful, informative Eagles videos every single day right here on Eagles Now. Let's start off with Alex Irvine, and we begin with him asking this. How are we feeling about Jalen Hurts and his struggles in the early part of the offseason? What happens if it continues in training camp? I feel as though Jalen Hurts gets unnecessary slander. People seem to realize that Jalen Hurts in 2022 was a terrific player. Great against the blitz, great on third downs, really good as a runner, had touch accuracy, precision, excellent long ball thrower. The fact that he finished runner-up in MVP voting, you can't scoff at that or deny it. He was behind Patrick Mahomes. Led the Eagles to the number 1 seed. When he was hurt, Eagles clearly not the same team that they were with him. There was a huge drop-off between Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew, who's been a successful spot starter and backup in this league, and you could just tell it wasn't even close. And then in the Super Bowl with the hurt shoulder, Jalen Hurts has a passer rating against the Chiefs' defense, which last year, best defense in the NFL behind the Baltimore Ravens, had a passer rating of 103.4 with 304 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown, and 3 rushing touchdowns. He combined for nearly 400 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns, and people act as though he stinks. Last year in November, Jalen Hurts was the odds-on favorite to win NFL MVP after that heroic comeback at home in the Kelly Greens against the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, in which he put the team on his back and led the Eagles to victory with that walk-off touchdown. After that, the offense plummeted, and there were signs that had you worried about the offense plummeting, right? But as late as November, he's the odds-on favorite to win NFL MVP, has a tough go at the end of the year, and people want to act as though he's a glorified running back. That's what I've seen in my mentions. It's crazy. Good leader, cares about his teammates, cares about the city, very stoic. So now in spring, he's struggling. He's throwing some picks during OTAs and minicamp. And here come the detractors once again, claiming that Jalen Hurts is garbage. He's trying to learn a new offensive system. If there's a time to be confused, to try to force balls in that maybe you wouldn't make those throws during the game, it's during OTAs and minicamp. Let's see how he performs in training camp, preseason, joint practices against other teams when he has more time to master this offense. Not hitting the panic button yet. Alex Irvine, thank you for that. Carol Hosey, talking about trades, what moves do you see us making? As far as a trade goes, we'll see if Philadelphia is active in that market. I think if Philadelphia were to make a trade, it would come as we approach the 53-man roster cutdown day, or after that, when the Eagles see who's cut, who's not, which players are available, who could get playing time, who could force their way out, who's still unhappy with their contract, who didn't get a contract, and that's when Howie Roseman could pounce. So as far as the trade targets go, you look at those types of situations. As for the position, wide receiver 3, backup running back, safety, maybe an edge rusher or defensive tackle. At basically every other position, I think you're in a really good spot. As far as free agency, everybody knows who I would sign in free agency to make the safety room better, deeper, and to make your defense better as a collective unit. That's Justin Simmons. We'll see if Howie pulls the trigger. Tanner Plummer, he knows ball. Do you think Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean get redshirted? Redshirted would mean they don't play at all, and maybe they play minimal snaps. I think it's pretty telling that during minicamp and OTAs, Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean during some of those practices at times were getting first-team reps. Mitchell on the outside, DeJean out of the slot. Both players showed off ball skills, instincts. They looked to be really good athletes. They made plays on the football consistently, and they turned heads. Remember when Jalen Reagor got drafted in the first round? People were like, uh-oh, he's not really doing anything yet. And I think to what Colin Cowherd says a lot when he talks to NFL players, and NFL players have told him this, and they've talked about it with Cowherd on his show. Sometimes you can tell after a practice or two if a player can play or not. And so far, there have been great reviews for Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Quinion Mitchell has been a pass breakup machine the last 2 years. Cooper DeJean had 7 interceptions at Iowa, 3 went back for touchdowns. And he's an exceptional athlete. Both are speedsters. Both are passing the test physically. So I think they could actually play in year one. I would not rule out Mitchell starting opposite of Darius Slay as a rookie. I would not rule out Cooper DeJean starting at nickel corner because they could be your best options. Now, Mitchell will have to beat out Keely Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers, hopefully not James Bradbury. DeJean's competing with Devontae Maddox and Tyler Hall. That's it. Lion Fighter, what kind of start would the Eagles have to have for Nick Serianni to get fired? My goodness, I hope that doesn't happen because that would be a disaster for a team that is extremely talented and unquestionably one of the better rosters in the NFL. I think the Eagles would have to start off 0-4, 1-6. Even if you're 0-4, that might be a little bit too early. Who are you going to call? Bill Belichick? You going to promote Kellen Moore to head coach? That would probably be the best option in-house because I'm not going with Vic Fangio as the head coach to take over for Nick Sirianni as the interim. So it would take a bad, awful start in which both the offense and the defense are terrible. The locker room issues and awkwardness continues. A sideline spat for Serianni in which he flips out and looks bad, in which Big Dom can't contain him. I hope it doesn't happen. I want a great season for Philadelphia. Also makes hosting the show a lot more fun as compared to them being bad. Millie315, does Tanner McKee make the roster with the new third quarterback emergency game day elevation rule? I think he does. By the way, some people have mentioned Will Grier. Chase, you're not talking about Will Grier. He did not take a single snap during mandatory minicamp. All right, so the 3 quarterbacks who make this team, they're going to be Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee was really impressive during the preseason last year. Throwing with touch and timing to the sideline, that's a difficult throw. Moves around pretty well for his size. He's really tall. I like the anticipation that he has to his game. And with the third QB emergency game day elevation rule, it gives you flexibility, but I think the Eagles want to continue to develop Tanner McKee, and they see him as a legitimate quarterback who maybe down the road can be a high-level backup or a starter. Not a high-level starter, but if he needs to start from time to time, he can step in for an injured Jalen Hurts. Elijah, what's the chance that Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown get over 3K yards combined? So on average, 1,500 yards each. I mean, A.J. Brown the last 2 years has had 1,500, and Devontae Smith has eclipsed 1,000 yards. They've still been, a couple hundred yards away from that number. That's pretty hard to do because Dallas Goedert is going to be a part of the pass game in Kellen Moore's offense. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a big part of the pass game too. That naturally takes catches away from either Smith or Brown. So I'd say the chances are low of 3K combined. Jason Russell, do you think Kellen Moore is going to draw up plays to maximize Hurts' skills, or is he going to make him more of a pocket passer like Prescott and Herbert? Herbert's never really been much of a runner. Dak Prescott, Kellen Moore would call RPOs and quarterback keepers for him often. Now, unfortunately, Prescott suffered that gruesome ankle injury when Kellen Moore was the OC, and then Dallas kind of got gun-shy about calling plays for Dak Prescott on the ground. And that's always the risk for a quarterback, right? I think for Hurts, the fact that he has such a strong lower frame allows him to carry tacklers, break tackles, and be somewhat durable. Hopefully Hurts, though, is able to regain some of that speed that we saw 2 years ago, because last year he looked a little bit slow. But there's a misconception that Kellen Moore doesn't like to run the football. Ezekiel Elliott had huge years under Kellen Moore. Dak Prescott was excellent. Justin Herbert's never really been much of a runner. I don't want to see him running because that dude has top 3 arm talent in the NFL. I mean, he's right up there with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Alex Irvine, $10 super chat, over under CJ Gardner-Johnson interceptions this year. So CJ Gardner-Johnson played 12 games for the Eagles in 2022, tied for the league high in picks alongside Justin Simmons with 6. And then last year played 2 games and had a pick. So CJ Gardner-Johnson in his last 15 games has 7 interceptions. It's basically 1 every other game. I think 6 is a good number, 5.5 if you want to go with the true betting line there. Over under for him, you hope that he can play the full season. Paul, $50 super chat. He sent in 2, so we'll round out the mailbag with his 2 huge super chats. Everybody congratulate Paul. He's getting married on Saturday this weekend. Hope it goes well, man. I know the old lady, absolutely beautiful, elated. You're going to have just a great future together. And I hope that both of you together live a long, happy, healthy, prosperous, peaceful, loving life. And thanks for the $50 super chat. I am doing a beer boot once we wrap up this mailbag for our live show. And then Paul again. I said, if you send in another 50, I'm doing that beer boot. He said, screw it. He sent it in. E-A-G-L-E-S. Paul. Subscribe to the channel so you can be a part of the mailbag as well. Always enjoy chopping it up with all of our viewers, subscribers, and real ones. And if you're still watching, give me a real one right now. All right. Super chat menu. All super chats get a shout out. $10 beer cheers. $20, 20 push-ups. 50 for a beer bong. 100 for a beer boot. We got the 2 50s from Paul. So I'm going to get my beer boot ready. Benjamin Moore saying, God bless Paul and your new bride. Carol Tanner saying, real one. Angela G. Congratulations, Paul. God bless you both. Angela G, also a real one. So is Nick Stone, Kane Angel. Been too long again. What up, Kane? All right, so I'm going to put up producer Chip, Bucks County's finest. I'm going to go get the beer boot ready. We're 13 likes away from 100. Can we get there before we sign off? I'll be back here in just a moment.
What up to all the real ones out there? Another big congratulations going out to Paul, man. What a special time. Hope it's truly a great experience and a great day for you, Paul, as it should be, man. John, watch the full live stream. Go Birds! Hey, who's been hanging out with us the entire stream? If you've been here since we started a little over an hour ago, type me. I want to know who's been here the entire time. Like John. Like the real one, John. Antonio, also a real one. Richard, saying congrats. Oh, yeah, you know. King Xavier said, you know, me, Nick Stone, Nate. Been here the whole time. Shout out to those that have been hanging out with us. We're 10 likes away from 100. Kane, is anyone watching the NBA Finals? Absolutely. Game 3 tonight in Dallas. Very close to where we are located here in Dallas, Texas. So definitely going to be checking that out. We got a couple of channels going live here at Chat Sports. Mavericks channel, obviously our Celtics channel, and also our main Chat Sports channel will all be live for the game. So if you want to, show some love to some of the other Chat Sports channels we got here, some of the other personalities, some great people that are running those channels, go check those out, man. Go check those out. Game is, I believe, 7:30 Central, so 8:30 Eastern. Double check that. Yep, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Channels should be live about an hour to 30 minutes before, so you know they're going to have deals and going to be partying it up. So definitely go check those out. Kane, I don't want the Celtics to win. Neither do I, brother, but I did predict. I'm a huge Sixers fan. I did predict Celtics in 6, and looks like they might pack this up real early. They're just a better team. Paul, been here the whole time. Of course you have, Paul. Shout out to Paul. Lion Fighter, if Dallas loses, it's over. Yeah, no team's ever come back from being down 3-0 in the NBA playoffs, much less the NBA Finals. So if Dallas loses, it is over. It is all but over. Berto thinks the Finals are going 7 games, so you think Dallas bounces back here. Interesting. We'll see what happens tonight. Mavericks are going to need Kyrie Irving to show up because he has not been good in these first 2 games. Yeah, Lion Fighter. Boston is just so deep, man. It's so frustrating because all those guys are going to be back next year too. But hey, you know what? If Porzingis doesn't play, all of a sudden it's a whole different series because defensively his impact is off the charts, man.
Talking hoops, huh?
Talking some hoops. And people saying they're excited for the finals tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope the Mavs win. I want this to be a series. I don't just want Boston to coast. I hate the Celtics more than any sports team in professional sports. It's not even close. More than the Cowboys, honestly. Because they've owned the Sixers. Boston is so deep, Lion Fighter. So, Luka Kyrie, gonna have to bring it. All right. Woo! Beer boot to celebrate Paul getting married on Saturday. Paul C. Louisiana Paul.
Let's go. Everyone type chug in the chat. Everyone type chug in the chat. Let's help Chase out, baby. Who's with me? Let's go. Chug, 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 chug. He's taking this one down, baby. Chug, 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 chug. Woo!
Whew. You know what's crazy? Jeremy Chugs, legend here at Chat Sports, he can do those in like 8 seconds. Now, I can do the shotgun in like 2 or 3 seconds. That's my specialty. But the boot, that much liquid in 8 seconds is crazy to me. Crazy. Ugh. John Horan, make this Delconian proud. Delco, yo! I got to get back to Philly, man. Would love to go back to Philly and catch a couple of Phillies games.
Oh, man, that'd be sweet.
Fly in on Friday, go to a Phil's game, Saturday, Sunday, fly back out. Been too long. All right, we're going to sign off. Thanks for a great show today. Thanks for being a part of it. Hope everybody else out there enjoyed the content, some good stuff that we were able to hit. And we're going to continue to give you great content every single day right here on Philadelphia Eagles. Now, during the slow months of the summer, we're still bringing the heat. For Chip, I'm Chase. For the Bird Gang, we out. Peace.